Good morning, everybody. As we go to the Chitas of today, we're holding the portion of Chayesada, and we're holding on chapter 24, verse 27. So we have the story still of Eliezer, and he meets Rivka, and she tells him who he is, and he's all happy. Baruch Hashem, he says, "Thank God, blessed are God, Elokei Adeni Avram, who's the God of my master Abraham. Shaliazav Chazdei, that who has not left his kindness, Amita in his truth, Mima Daini from my master, Anechi Baderech, I am on the way, Nachani Hashem, God has brought me along, the base Achi Adaini from my master, the house of my master." Now she says, this was a designated path, the straight path, the path that I needed. Similar to ever it was a base and a lamed, or a hey, baderech. The letter beis is the word is vocalized with a patach, baderech. They refer to something obvious and that already been mentioned elsewhere, and it's clear and evident about what we're speaking. So baderech, I went on this way. I've gone in the way of Avram Avinu. And this girl ran. She ran to her mother's house, and she told him these words. Usually the way of women, they used to have a house. They used to have a home, a separate house that they used to do their work. And a girl confines in her mother. And that's why she went to her mother's house. Rivka had a brother, Shmei Lavan, and the brother's name was Lavan. Ayoritz Lavan Eliish. When Lavan heard about it, he ran out to the guy. He ran outside to the man. He wanted to see who this guy was. Ashi says, "Why did he run? And what did he run for? What did he run?" The answer is, when he saw, wow, his sister is wearing all this gold. He said, "Wow, this guy's wealthy. I gotta go check this guy out, and I gotta see who this man is, because this guy must be somebody who has money." When having seen the nose ring and the bracelet on his sister's hand, and when he heard the words of Rivka, his sister, this is what this man spoke. So he came running to the man, and Eliezer was standing on the camels, which was on the spring. Now she says, stood there to watch them. Verse number 31 of and he said to him, Baruch Hashem, blessed is God. Lama tamed baruch bachutz. Why are you standing outside? I already cleaned the house. And I made place for your camels. Now she says, what do you mean clean the house? The house was dirty. He said, so I cleaned the house for an idol worship. Said, come, I'm sorry, and Eliezer, this guy came into the house, and he muzzled the camels, and he gave straw and fodder to the camels, and food and water to wash his feet, and to the men that were with him. He muzzled their muzzles, for he would obstruct their mouths on the way that they should not eat from other people's fields. Verse 33, and he brought food that Eliezer should eat. Eliezer said, I'm not going to eat until I speak. So he said, okay, speak. Now she says again, until I've spoken. Here the word im, ad im dibarti, is translated as if. It's used in the sense of ashed, that. But it's also found in the word ki. So we find, just like you find the word key has different meanings until this corresponds with a sage of beloved memory said, key has 4 possible meanings. One of it is E, which is an Aramaic im, if. He said, Eved Avram Anochi, I am the servant of Abraham. Hashem and God greatly blessed my master, Vayigdal, and he became very prosperous. He gave him flock and cattle, and silver and gold. He gave him all the stuff. Avadim, Shvachas, bondmen and bondswomen, the Gmalim, Chamerim, camels and donkeys. Taylor Sada Esha Dani Ben Ladani, and my master's wife Sarah had a son. Achaz Knesa in her old age. Ayitanlay is Kalashalay, and he gave to his son, Abraham gave to his son Isaac everything that he has. Now she says, Eliezer showed them the gift deed. Avraham Avinu gave as a gift everything to Yitzchak in his lifetime. That's why he gave as a gift, because really he would inheritance, he would have to inherit it to Yishmael. He's the oldest son. But he gave as a gift. He gifted everything to Yitzchak in his lifetime, which he's allowed to do. And my master made me make a vow. Not take a wife from my son, from the daughters of Canaan. I'm sitting in their midst. Now she says, unless you first go to my father's house, to my family, and the woman does not wish to come. So therefore, I'm here to ask the question. If you don't want to come, I'm going back to Canaan. You go to my father's house, to my family. And take for my son a daughter from my family. Verse 39, I said to my master, what happens if this maiden, this girl, doesn't want to come with me? So Rashi says, this is a tricky word, ulai. Like siv, it's actually written, you take away the kubuts under the word. You take away the kubuts, you can translate the word to mean, so you put a segel, and that's what it's elites to me. Although usually written with a vav, it's written here without a vav, so that it can mean elite to me. If it would have been if it would have been written a vav, then the vav is the chaylam, then it's ulai. It has to be ulai. If it's aleph vav lamed yud, then it's ulai. It must be ulai. The second you take out the vav, which the pasuk doesn't have, so the question about the vowel underneath the aleph. So and actually it's written elai. This was an inner intention of Eliezer. Eliezer had a daughter, it's a medrash, and he was looking for a pretext for Avram to say to him that he's turning to marry his daughter. Isaac. Abraham said, my son is blessed, you're cursed. You're not my family is a blessed family. Why would I marry into your family? And one who's cursed cannot unite with a blessed one, so therefore I can't. But really, Eliezer had a desire that his own family should marry into this family. Hashem, and God said to me, and he said to me, Avram said to me, Hashem, salach the front of God who went before me, who I went before him. Yisha malach will send your angels with you. Yitzlicha darkecha, and he'll make your mission successful. Lakach the ish livni, and you'll take a girl from my son, in mishpachti, from my family. I'm 100% sure that this will be successful. And thus you'll be free from my oath. You have an oath until you do it. Once you do it, you'll be free. Because you're going to come to my family. If they're not going to give you this girl, and she's not going to go, you're not going to let them go. So then, then you'll be forgiven for the vow. Verse number 44, today I came to the spring. And I said, Hashem Avram, God, the God of my master Abraham, if you'll only crown my mission, you'll make my success my mission, which I'm going. As she says, today I started the journey, and today I arrived today. We can deduce from here that the land shrank, so to say, that he pushed left in the morning and got there in the afternoon. So it was a very quick journey. It should take a couple of days. So it was miraculously shortened. Rabbi Acha said, recounting the story, over here the Torah tells us over and over again what happened, and recounting the story of even our forefathers' servants is more pleasing to God than the Torah of the descendants. For the passage concerning Eliezer is repeated in the Torah once, twice, and it goes over and over. Yet many principles of the Torah are given by a brief allusion. So we see that the Torah loves the stories of the patriarchs sometimes more than even the law, because we learn from the stories actually the law of the Torah. I came to the stand at the spring of water. And the maiden, Ayetza Lishav, that will come out to get water, tell her, give me some water before your pitcher. From her life, she tells me, you shall drink. And also, I'll give it to your camels. Hiya Isha. That is the woman. Which is, God has shown me to be the girl for my master. Now she says, Gam Ata. Also, you Gam also indicates that the girl would include the men with him. Not only I'm giving to you to drink, he came with a bunch of people. So I'm going to give you to drink. I'm going to give all the people to drink. I'm going to give all the camels to drink. Now she says, he clarifies and demonstrates destiny, so to say, this is destiny. Bashet. That it's a fitting match. Similar, every expression of a chacha in the Torah is to clarify something, it's prove something. Nadia finished of speaking. Alibi on my heart, and Rivka comes out. She's holding a pitch on her shoulder. She went down to the well and she drew the water. I went over to her and I said, please give me some water. She says, I was not yet even finished. That's terem akala, before I finish. Every expression at the present tense can sometimes use in the past tense form. It can have been written terem kilisi, it says achala, and not yet finished. And sometimes it can be future tense, terem achala, just before. So as Job would say, what he will do in the future. So you can say the word, really you can say the word terem kilisi. That would be one way to say it, before I finished. Or you could say the terem achala, before I finished in the future. And she immediately lowered her pitcher. She gave me to drink. She gave me to also my camels drink. And I drank. And also the camels all had their water. Verse 47, I'll ask her a question. And I asked her, Bas Miat. I said, who are you? Who's this family? Such a charitable person. What's your family? So she said, I'm the daughter of Besuel. Ben Nocha was the son of Nocha. Asherado Milka, which Milka gave birth. And when I heard her say who her family was, I placed a ring on her nose. I gave her bracelets. Now she says he changed the order because yesterday, first he gave her the bracelets and then he asked her who she was. Now he says over here that he asked her who she was and then he gave her the bracelets. So so you had to change it because people say, what are you giving presents to a girl? So for he had in fact given the jewelry, then he questioned. However, he did so in order to not catch him on his own words and say, how can you give anything to a girl before you know who she is? So therefore he changed it. He said a little bit of a lie. I bowed and my head, I bowed and prostrated myself to God. I bowed down to God. Bavarach Hashem, I bless God. Elokei Adeni, the God of my master Avram. Asher Nechani Baderech, who led me on this path. I am the true path. Akach says, Bas Achi Adeni, Mamish, led me straight to this wonderful girl, and it's also Bas Achi Adeni. It's the daughter of the brother. My master is her uncle. Live nice. It's a perfect shidduch. They're cousins. Now, if you act, if you want to act in kindness and truth with my master, Sadeni, tell me, is it a shidduch? Mazel tov. Can we drink l'chaim? Tell me if it's not. I'll leave. I'll leave. Either to the right or to the left. Al Yamin, meaning to the daughters of Yishmael. Al Smael, to the daughters of Lot, that was living to the left, the north of Abraham. Ayan Lavan and Besuel. So Lavan and Besuel answered, Vayemam Hashem is divine providence. How can we argue with such a story? This is a total divine providence story. We cannot respond to the good or to the bad. To the bad or to the good. We can't say anything. See me, God has already, this is a destined situation. Now she says, Vayan Lavan. What is Lavan? He's talking in front of his father. Rasha here. Lavan was wicked. The kafas love, he jumped into ants even before his father. That shows you that we introduced in this week's parasha to Lavan. That shows you Lavan is already. To refuse you in this matter, not giving a bad response, nor giving a reasonable response. For it's evident that the matter was determined by God, it's pashet, according to what you have said, it's arranged already for it. The Eibush to arrange the shidduch, and that's it. Therefore, you can have her. Kach v'leich, you can take this girl, a beautiful shidduch, let her become a wife to the son of your master. Hashem, as God has spoken. It's all divine providence. Verse 52, when the servant of Abraham heard what they said, he bowed down to God. So the divine providence. And here we learn that you have to thank God when you hear a good news. You have to thank the Eibishter for all the good news that you hear. That completes the Chumash for today. Now go to the Tanya of the day. We're holding the 29th letter of the Alter Rebbe. So Alter Rebbe continues talking about mitzvahs, and it's talking about the levushim that a person creates in this world that gives them the capability that in the upper world, a little bit Kabbalistic, that gives them the capability in the upper world to receive the light of God. Why? Because these levushim, in these garments, is the rotzin of the Eibishter. Is the true rotzin, not only the rotzin, the will of God, it's the tainig of God, the delight of God is in these garments. The Alter Rebbe now goes on to explain that in addition to this function of mitzvah of the garment for the soul, they also serve to unite the sublime spiritual level of Keser with the physical object which the commandments are performed. Again, the concept of Keser is Ratzon and Tainet. The simple meaning is Ratzon. Keser is the crown of God, which is the Teresh of Alper. We just started off this whole letter, is the or law. That's the Ratzon of the Eibishter. That's the will of God. It's above Seichel. Right? That's what God wanted. The halacha is halacha is that's what you got to do, what you got to do. That's the real, as we explain, that even if you're going to give all the reasons to halacha is beyond comprehension because it's the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's the will of God, and it's even higher than the will of God because it's a tainig of God. It's God's delight in this halacha. As such, they resemble a pillar. They go further. Because a mitzvah, we learned, is 613 strands. They are connections. Mitzvah comes to the word connections. That is the ultimate connection a Jew has with God, is through a mitzvah. They resemble a pillar that connects the highest part of the house to the lowest part. That's another concept of the mitzvah. Not only to lavush, it's actually the ultimate concept of connection that a person has with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's the only connection, the only true connection. So the supernal will is termed and reaffirmed in Kabbalah. It's called by the sages of truth. That's the sages of Kabbalah. B'shem Keser Elyon. It's called in Kabbalah, in the Zohar, it's called Keter Elyon, supreme crown. Uboy tarach eimudei oir. Keser, the word Keser is Chaf, Saf, Reish. What is Chaf, Saf, Reish? 620. Right? Chaf is 20, Saf is 400, Reish is 200, 620. So Keser is 620. What is the connection? 620 is 620 pillars of light. Now, why? L'chayr is 613. So the 613 Torah obligations and a set of 7 rabbinical mitzvahs, like Hanukkah and Purim, rabbinical mitzvahs, we make a bracha on, and you have altogether 620. So there are Keser is 620 Amudei Oir, being the miracle given the word Keser. Peter Derash Mashal. So why do we call it Amudim? It's called the pillars. By an analogy, just like a Raj brick house, there are pillars. By yesterday, you come Amudim base Choy you go to these places, see these big pillars. So these big pillars are on top of the front of the house are holding the roof. Standing on the ground, the apex is connected to the ceiling. So the ceiling, thereby connecting the lowest part of the house to the highest. So too is the same analogy. Keser Elyon Baruch Hu, the supernal Keser, transcending level of Chachma. Is even higher than Chachma. Transcends with wisdom. Keser transcends with the crown upon Chachma. Meloshin Keseres, Keser comes from the word Koiteres, for it surrounds. It surrounds and encompasses over the brain, over the head. Which the brain of the head is comprised of wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. So Keser goes above them. So what is above? What is above wisdom? Is Ratzain. Is Ratzain, the will of God, and as the Alter Rebbe said, the Tainig of God. Ratzain Zeh, and this will that comes from Keser, Slavish B'tayag Mitzvah Torah, come down into the physical mitzvah. 630 commandments, V'zayim Mitzvah Rabban, the 7 mitzvahs of the rabbi, Sheruban Kukula, that a majority of them, a mitzvah's maisis, is physical actions. And even those mitzvahs that are not a physical action, we got to dibur. And also these even commandments that depend upon speech. Nevertheless, even though speech is more spiritual than the physical action, they too belong to the category of practical action. How do we know that? The Gemara says in Halacha that the movement of one's lip, speech, is regarded as an act. Even those commandments are related to the thought of the heart, such as the commandments regarding love of God. So love of God is still considered a physical act. Why? The commandments were not given. Love can be found in Gan Eden. But love of the mitzvah, love of God, you shall love God, is a mitzvah in this world. And it's given to a physical man in this physical world. Which every man has free choice. Every person was given free choice. To turn his guard to the good, or to the bad, God forbid. Take the soul without a body. You don't have to command the soul to love God. A soul naturally loves God. He doesn't have to be commanded to love God. So even the concept of love, the mitzvah of love, is also an action because it's given to man to love, not given to the soul to love. The soul is not needed of the mitzvah of love. It's given to a human being to love. So therefore, every mitzvah Torah, also the Alter Rebbe wants to prove that every mitzvah Torah, every commandment in the Torah, is a pillar of light that comes from the will of God, that even that God wants you to love Him. Is a connection between me and God. It's like a connection that connects the top to the bottom. Every mitzvah is like a pillar, one of the 620 pillars, metaphorically speaking. These pillars like standing, they connect to the highest level. Higher than Chachma, higher than wisdom of Atzilus. They reach up to Ratzah. They reach up to Tainut, the delight. They connect totally straight to the mitzvah that I did here in this world. The metaphor, again, a metaphor, to speak in like a hollow pillar that encompasses and guards with garments of mitzvahs man's neshama. So you have to imagine, because the Alter Rebbe said, is it levushim or they pillars? But actually, the pillar can be a levush, because a lot of pillars that you see, these big pillars, they're hollow inside. So that you're surrounded like a pillar. In essence, every mitzvah, like we said before, we surround ourselves with Gan Eden. This Gan Eden is a pillar. It's connected to the highest level. It comes down to this world. I'm surrounded with this humongous pillar that goes up from the highest level to the lowest level. So this pillar is a lavush, is a garment. Which garments, the Malbish and Neshama Adam surrounds the human being, his soul, or ruchay, or his spirit, or nafshay. Yeshakayim is a mitzvah when he does the mitzvah. And through these pillars that a person creates around him, that's how his neshama ascends. To the highest levels in Gan Eden. To be bond, the bond of life, which is God. That's how, we say, may his soul be bond with the bond of life. That's how it's bond. It's bonded with the bond of life through the mitzvahs he does. What the meaning is that we want that our neshama should be connected to the highest levels of godliness, to ultimately the will of God, to Kesed, who rots in Elyon Baruch Hu, which is the will of God. And that's what we want. We want to go to the essence, which is more to the essence of God, to his tiny. And that's the next day. And through this pillar, the neshama can taste the pleasantness of God. The pleasantness and the pleasure. Even higher than Kesed. And pnimius to the essence of everything, al derech mashal. So that's the beauty. The beauty is that through a mitzvah, which compared to Kesed, a person can reach up to the highest level, to the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and the neshama can touch and enjoy the pleasantness of every mitzvah that he does, which is the tainug of the Eibush and true delight of God, the ultimate essence of God. What the tainug is a person's essence. Even though, as explained elsewhere, the commandments are the pnimis, the innermost elements of the supernal will, while here it explains that they're merely external aspect of Kesed, the external aspect of the supernal will. So, what is it? Because ultimately, the mitzvah is a physical thing. So those who learn Kabbalah learn, when you learn Chassidus, when you learn Kabbalah, everything, you'll learn the real concept of relativity. What Einstein turned, everything is relative. Everything talks. So a mitzvah on one hand is physical, the lowest thing. On the other hand is the highest thing. All relative. All talking and concerning in which level it is. That's what Chassidus learns in every argument in halacha. They're both true. How are they possible to be both to be true? Because it depends in which situation you're talking about, in which level you're talking about. So in certain levels, la halacha ultimately it goes like Beis Hillel, but Beis Shammai is not wrong. In a certain level, he's 100% right. But ultimately, in the physical world, it goes to a certain level. The halacha is like Hillel. So it doesn't make Beis Shammai wrong. It just says, in this level, in this worldly level, we go like Beis Hillel. But maybe in a higher level, we'll go like Beis Shammai. So everything is relative when it comes to Hasidic teachings. There's never a contradiction in Hasidic learning. There's always the possibility of handling opposites and total different realities. Because since we're talking in the spiritual world, so therefore, everything has its place. The concept of spirituality is the concept of unity. And therefore, that's why the Mishnah says, there's nothing that doesn't have its place. There's no person that doesn't have its place. Because every person has a place. And every concept has a place. If it's L'Shem Shamayim selfless, so we're not talking about stupidity. Even stupidity actually has a place. But we're talking about L'Shem Shamayim, surely things that are for the sake of heaven, everything has its place. So if a student of Kabbalah is well acquainted with the multitude of aspects and levels within every aspect and level amongst various levels of holiness. By Bechinas Panul upon it. The action can be face-to-face, meaning, they could be, so let's say, for example, something that can be, when you have a pnimis and chitzonius, so let's say, for example, in the upper worlds, you have chachma is pnimis, and then you have the midas, it's chitzonius, but they become the pnimius to the next world. So Malchus is the vessel for the world of Atzilus. But then Malchus becomes Chachma or Ratzin to the world of Bria. So now Malchus becomes Pnimius. So it depends with the level. In Atzilus, Malchus, the attribute of kingship, is Chetzonis. It's the outer, the vessel. But when it comes into Bria, into the next world, it becomes Pnimius. And now Malchus of Bria comes the vessel. If it comes to the world of Yetzirah, the world of formation, now it becomes Pnimius. Now it becomes so everything is relative. And that's what, again, you have face-to-face, meaning since Panim is related to Pnimius, relative to a particular spiritual level, another level is even more internal. So, for example, my Pnimius could be your Chetzonis, you're much higher. So my essence, my inner thing is by your Chitzon. You shouldn't say, because you shouldn't come to be like me. No, everybody has their own pnimis and chetzenis. So I cannot say, I'm going to be like you, your chetzenis. No, because your chetzenis can be my pnimis, or vice versa, because everything is relative. Pnimis and chetzenis is relative to me. So too, pnimis and chetzenis is relative to you. So to a big genius, my thoughts is trivial. His thoughts is greater. To a person that's lower than me, my thoughts are unbelievable and his thoughts is trivial. Because everything is relative. La'in Kate, and there's no end to this. Therefore, that you find a contradiction is lav dafka contradiction. That we say mitzvahs is chetzenis hakasa, yeah, at a certain level. That we just said mitzvahs is primus hakasa, the essence hakasa, that's at a certain level. Everything has its place. Thus, relative to the external level of the supernal will spoken about here, mitzvahs are termed as external. Where in other contexts, they're compared to a lower level, they're termed as internal aspect of will. So therefore, everything is relative. That's why you say you have in the Torah, for example, the mitzvah tzedakah is the most important mitzvah. Then it says the mitzvah tefillin is most. Oh, the mitzvah Talmud Torah is the most important mitzvah. Oh, the mitzvah of action. Everything is important. What is important? Everything is important. Because everything is to its relative to what it's needed in the world, its purpose, and to its purpose, that thing is important. So to every person is important. Every person has a purpose, and therefore, to what that purpose his purpose in the world, nobody else can do that. So, to that concept, he's the most important entity in the world, and that's why every person could say "B'shvili nivra the whole world, even a guy who's a pauper, beggar, a homeless guy, can say "B'shvili nivra the whole world's good because I have a purpose. So that there has to be something that the whole world needs me, that even Moshe Rabbeinu cannot accomplish in the world needs me. Why? Because everything's relative. To this purpose, Moshe Rabbeinu cannot do it. You need to do it. So it's a very deep concept of Chassidus. We learned it actually last night in the class, the concept of purpose. That there got to be a purpose in creation. Every person has to find his purpose. Because that purpose is the whole reason why you're here. And once you understand your purpose in this world, then everything else falls into place. The Alter Rebbe above call the commandments 620 pillars of the light of Kesed. How does this agree with the previous statement that the 613 garments and mitzvahs correspond to the 613 soul powers? Sounds like a contradiction. The Alter Rebbe now answers the 7 commandments of the sages, who bring a total of 620, are not self-sufficient mitzvahs, but are branches of the scriptural commandments. So really, we always say 613. That's what 613 strands. We learned that Chav Yisrael, Chevel, it's considered 613 strands. Now the Alter Rebbe throws in 620 pillars. So what is it? So the truth is it's 613. But we know there's 7 rabbinical commandments. But those 7 are part of the 613. So really, on one level, there's really only 613. But since the Chachamim connected another 7 to it, that's why it's 620 pillars. So the sages, which brings the total 620, are not self-sufficient mitzvahs. That's why the Gemara asks, my Hanukkah. So we have to find Hanukkah in the Torah. We have to find Purim in the Torah. Purim, Menayin, Gemara asks, Mordechai Menayin. Where do we find Mordechai? Where do we find Esther in the Torah? So we have to find something the Chachamim need to connect it to a Torah concept. But our branches of scriptural commandments, which they respectively derive from. The soul, thus, that's why you feel even the Menorah. Zeis Chanukas HaMenorah, the Menorah was dedicated, the Beis HaMikdash was actually finished. Now she says the Beis HaMikdash was finished on Chafei Kislev. The Eibush said to dedicate the Mishkan on Rosh Chodesh Nisan. But the pasuk alludes that one day you're going to dedicate the Mishkan on the 25th day of Kislev. That's Hanukkah. So it's alluded in the pasuk. So the Gemara explains all the Hanukkah already is in Torah Sheba'al Peh, Torah Sheba'Ksav. Hanukkah is already mentioned in the Torah. The soul thus has 600 garments that derive to the 613 commandments. The rabbinical mitzvah included garments guard the 600 powers of the soul, but ultimately it equals up to 620. 7 precepts of the sages are not counted as the mitzvahs of commandments. They're counted mitzvah rabbana. They're not the 613 commandments. We don't say the 620 commandments. We say the 613 commandments. And then we say the 7 rabbinical commandments. So they're rabbinical because they're not Torah. What is the meaning? They're rabbinical. They're connected to the Torah. So therefore, the garments, that's why the 613 soul powers, because that's connected to the Torah. And that's so the Torah says you're not allowed to add a mitzvah. So how did Chacham, the pasuk, how did the sages go against a pasuk? The pasuk says you're not allowed to add a mitzvah, and then the Chachamim added 7 mitzvahs. So self-understood, they didn't add to 613. 613 says 613. But in the 613, we have the Chachamim created a branch to the mitzvah. So the branch of the law of the menorah is connected to the branch of the concept of Hanukkah. It's a branch, it's an offshoot of that. They come, they are derived, and they issued from the commandments of the Torah. And the 7 are part of the 613. Because there's 613. As the Zohar says, there's 613 powers to the nefesh, ruach, and neshama of man. There's 613, not 620. 613. And that stays, that number stays, and that number doesn't change. So as previously stated, the mitzvahs are like 600 hollow pillars that encompass and guard the neshama, ruach, and nefesh of the individual who perform the commandments. Is through these pillars. So there's really 613 pillars that branch into 620, that the soul rises to the greatest heights and is bound with the radiance of Keser, crown of God. Additionally, it is through these garments of the mitzvahs that the soul is able to behold the pleasantness of God. So there's 2 things. Number 1 is he's a garment, he surrounds himself. And number 2 is not even that the neshama has the capability through this garment, through this pillar, to receive its reward, to receive its pleasantness, to receive its revelation. And he receives the pleasantness of God, and to experience the pleasurable thirst that transcends even Keser itself. It connects to, as we learn in Kabbalah, it connects to Oir Ein Sof Baruch Hu. It connects to the infinite light of God. So it's even higher than Ratzah and Tainug. It connects to the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's the end of Tanya of today. Today is the 21st day of the month. And the Tillim of the day is chapter 104 and chapter 105. You say in Psalms 104 and 105, you do the chitas of the day. The Rebbe writes in the Hayom Yom of today, it is the avodah, the service of davening, of prayer, which brings the comprehension of the brain into the emotional sensitivity of the heart. Davening is that bridge that brings the intellect to the emotions and also brings both of them together into practical service of performing mitzvahs. So the way a person learns, and ultimately the way a person davens, prays. So the way a person connects his mind and his heart to the service of God, ultimately that's the way he's going to do a mitzvah. With fear of heaven and acquiring fine character traits. That's the ultimate concept. Be a mensch, be a decent human being. That you become a person that has fine character traits. That's what you accomplish when you bring the mind and the heart together through learning and davening. That you bring the mind and the heart together, you create an unbelievable concept and you change the way you act. My dear friends, I want to invite you tonight at 7 o'clock. We're going to learn halacha. We're doing it tonight on Wednesday because tomorrow is a big challah bake. All to all women over here that have not signed up for the challah bake, you still have a chance to sign up, I believe. So we're going to do the class tonight, the halacha class tonight at 7 p.m. And I hope to see you over there. Come learn halacha. Kol hasheina halacha is muftach lusha ben olam haba. That's this letter. Whoever, the previous letter, I'm sorry. Whoever learns, no, this letter. Whoever learns halacha he's muftach. He's for sure a place in the world to come. Not, we'll see you, Mitchell, tomorrow, 8 o'clock. We'll continue to learn the chitas of the day. I wish you all a wonderful, beautiful, happy, and healthy